What if one thing that's holding you back isn't lack of money, your lack of confidence, or your lack of opportunity? What if it's the fact that you can't sit with yourself in a room by yourself for 30 minutes without reaching for your phone? A lot of men say they want to become leaders, but there are few who are willing to spend time with themselves. And if you can't be alone, you'll never become the man that people can depend on, or the man that you're trying to be. We live in a world that rewards consistent stimulations. The moment we're bored, we scroll. The moment we feel lonely, we text someone. And the moment life gets uncomfortable, we distract ourselves. And we always are consuming music, podcasts, Instagram, videos, reels, YouTube, etc. And always receiving notifications and stuff like that. But here's the question. When was the last time you sat with yourself alone with your thoughts? No phone, no music, no distractions, no nothing, but just you and God. When was the last time that you did that? Because the truth is, if you're always needing something to keep your mind occupied, you may never hear the voice that's trying to guide you in your life. But being alone isn't the problem. A lot of people fear being alone because they confuse it with being abandoned. Then those aren't the same things. Being alone is where you discover who you are without being in front of an audience. It's where your insecurities surface. It's where your excuses become obvious. And it's where your character is built. Because that's exactly why so many people avoid it. Because silence forces you to face yourself. It forces you to face that man in the mirror or that woman in the mirror. Leadership is built in private. Every strong leader spends time alone, not because they hate people, but because leadership requires clarity. You can't lead others if you're constantly influenced by everyone else's opinion. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. If your identity changes depending on who you're around, then you need to reevaluate yourself. Because if you're uncomfortable without constant attention, then you're not leading. You're following. Before God used Moses to lead a nation, he spent years in the wilderness. Before David became king, he was alone watching sheep. Before Jesus began his public ministry, he spent 40 days alone in the wilderness. The pattern is hard to ignore. God often prepares leaders in private before he reveals them in public. Most men avoid solitude because a lot of them aren't afraid. Most men avoid solitude because a lot of men aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of what they'll discover when everything gets quiet. Maybe they'll realize that they're living without purpose. Maybe they'll have the comfort in addiction that they've been hiding. Maybe they'll admit that they're chasing validation. And maybe they'll realize that they've become someone that they don't even recognize anymore. Because noise keeps us distracted, but silence exposes us who we really are. And growth starts with honesty. And being honest with yourself is where the real growth starts. The phone being a replacement for solitude is not the answer. This is about how life was years ago. You got to think about it. People waited in line and just waited. Today, The second there's 5 seconds of silence, we grab our phone, we scroll, we go on social media just to distract ourselves. We're uncomfortable with stillness, but if your mind is always needing entertainment, how will you ever hear conviction? How will you ever recognize direction? How will you know where God is leading you if you never give him time or day and sit in his presence? How will you know which direction he's telling you to go? Solitude builds strong men. The strongest men I know aren't always the loudest. They're secure, they're disciplined, and they don't need attention to know who they are. They spend enough time alone to develop conviction, because when you learn to be alone, you stop making decisions based on loneliness and based on others' opinion. You stop settling for unhealthy relationships because you are afraid of empty spaces. You stop chasing every opportunity and you start choosing what aligns with your purpose. You have to be practical with certain challenges. This week I want to challenge you guys. Spend an hour completely alone, no phone, no music, no videos, and no distractions. Just bring your Bible or a journal and pray, think, write, meditate, whatever you gotta do, and just ask yourself, who am I becoming? What's distracting me from being who God called me to be, and what's keeping me from the purpose that God has for me? What is God trying to show me that I've been too busy to hear? It'll probably feel uncomfortable at first, but that's okay, because growth usually does. It's not supposed to be comfortable. Growth is never supposed to be comfortable. You're gonna always be in seasons of growth, but the goal isn't isolation. We were created for community, but healthy community starts with healthy identity. You gotta figure out where your identity is and where your community is. If you can't be alone, you'll spend your life depending on other people to tell you who you are. And a man who needs constant validation can't consistently lead. Character is built in silence, and purpose is often discovered in solitude. So don't run from being alone, lean into it, because the man you're praying to become may be waiting for you on the other side of silence. In this video, I want to challenge you to really dive deep and look within yourself and really discover who you are. But if this video resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to Search for Purpose, because we're building something. We're building a community of just disciplined individuals, purpose-driven individuals, and faith-driven individuals. Like my last video that I posted, and tag me on social medias. You can follow me at official Young Brazy. That's official Young Brazy. It's Young without the O. And stay purpose driven.